Today we look at the troops at the command of Beelzebub, Lord of the Flies, from the lore we've had so far. So welcome back to the trenches and let's begin. First, the Lord of Tumors, a high-ranking noble officiant in the cult of the Black Grail. The Lord of Tumors spreads filth and corruption amongst friend and foe alike. They commune with the Lord of the Flies through a trance-like ecstasy and can channel the very power of the seventh circle of hell, which Beelzebub rules. Next up, the Plague Knight. When the tide of Black Grail comes, many mortals cry out to Beelzebub in their despair, hoping that the Lord of Flies would spare them in exchange for worship and servitude. But their cries fall on deaf ears, for the Prince of Gehenna hates all creation, and only wishes to warp it into a form pleasing to him and hateful to God. But there are few mortals, though exceedingly rare, who truly share the vision of Beelzebub, and wish the world to end in a putrid, parasite-infested mass, eternally writhing in the throes of the endless plagues bestowed upon them by the Black Grail. Many of them are secret and highly skilled killers, men and women whose pleasure is to murder repeatedly, plying their craft in secret, wishing one day to do it openly. From amongst such twisted individuals are inducted into the ranks of the unholy order of the Fly, known as Plague Knights. When the Black Grail comes, they come out calmly and welcome the wave of corruption, and are not consumed by it, but rather warped into a cadaver-like creature halfway between life and death. They retain sentience, intelligence, and a dim memory of their past lives, making them extremely useful at leading the Black Grail into isolated farmsteads and remote settlements that might otherwise escape the clutches of Beelzebub. The more living creatures a Plague Knight can find and warp beyond recognition, the higher they will climb in the ranks of the Order of the Fly, and the greater the favour they will find in the eyes of Beelzebub. Amongst their ranks there are 12 Plague Knights of great renown, made in mockery of paladins of the Church, great champions of the Fly. They dwell within Ekron, the city of Beelzebub, a place of such wilting horror that none dare to approach it, not even the mightiest of heretic lords. But sometimes the orders of their lord come to their ears, and then the mightiest of Plague Knights strike forth, following orders carried out by the deafening buzz of trillions of beating wings of hellflies. Next, two short ones, the Corpse Guard first. Only the strongest human devotees can survive the blessings of the Black Grail. The ones that do are inducted into the ranks of the Corpse Guard, bodyguards to the nobility of the Black Grail. If they serve with distinction, they may one day join the ranks of the infernal nobility. And the Hounds of the Black Grail, parasitic carcasses of canines infested with maggots and flies, spawn from the body of Beelzebub himself. Their unholy mission is to prowl no man's land and spread diseases and pestilence in the name of their dark master. There are also the Grail Thralls and Fly Thralls. The boons of the Black Grail lead slowly but surely down the path of utter corruption. Only very few of the chosen can withstand the blessings of the Lord of the Flies. Most are turned into Grail Thralls and join the endless legions of empty, hollowed out and diseased husks who must obey the whims of the Black Grail nobles for all eternity, while suffering the torment of their countless supernatural inflictions. Or infections is what I should have said there. Thralls come in two varieties: Grail Thralls that have become almost impervious to pain, and Fly Thralls, controlled by the gargantuan hellflies that have buried their proboscises deep into the central nervous system of their victims, allowing far greater mobility in exchange for less resistance to pain. Now you could be a thrall like that, or things could be worse, for you could be a Herald of Beelzebub. Some victims of the Black Grail suffer a far worse fate than becoming that mere thrall. They are bestowed with black honour by being melded with hellflies, growing into a grotesque winged insect made of bloated flesh. After this torturous metamorphosis, they take to air as Heralds of Beelzebub, the winged squires and scouts of the Order of the Fly. Their human bodies are still conscious, as they are slowly eaten from within to be used as fuel by the Herald. All the while their warped bodies fight for the glory of hell against their will. The Heralds are the vanguard in any assault of the Black Grail, and the ear-numbing otherworldly drone of their wings strikes terror in any defender, breaking their focus and sapping their willpower. Heralds wield discarded weapons contaminated with horrible worms that churn through them, which in turn infect their victims. Each diseased bullet has sentience of its own, finding even the smallest chink in any armor, burrowing into the nervous system and liquefying the internal organs from within. One of the ones with vertical visuals is the amalgam. Amalgams arise in places where discarded pieces of living or dying flesh can be found. Fresh mass graves, the catacomb trenches and charnel houses overflowing with the dead and the dying. The piles of discarded limbs from the field hospitals and hiding places where cowards huddle in bunkers and dugouts, vainly hoping that the wrath of Beelzebub would pass them without harm. With enough material at hand, the Black Grail melds the flesh and bone into a shape pleasing to the Lord of the Flies. Now the faction's weapons. First, the infested rifle armour offers little protection against the horrid, tainted bullets of this rifle, polluted by the power of Beelzebub himself. The bullets are semi-sentient, flying through the tiniest of chink in any armour. Corruption belchers spew forth noxious gas and corrosive fumes captured from the bulges of the putrid swamps of the seventh layer of hell. A putrid shotgun can be loaded with corroded demon-possessed winged shot filled with infected parasite larvae. The rounds of the putrid shotguns are almost impossible to avoid. This repulsive weapon is nicknamed Blunderpuss by the new Antioch troops, and a viscera cannon is a heavy firearm, is the most loathsome and repulsive of all the weapons in the arsenal of the Black Grail, and that is saying something considering the stiff competition it has. A warrior armed with this pride of Beelzebub inserts its tubes into their own abdomen, and then shoots the corrosive contents of their own innards at the enemy. It is operated by a hand crank that first builds pressure inside the user until they are at the point of bursting, and then releases the spray of viscera at their foe. The greater the amount of their own flesh the user releases, the more horrific the damage. With a plague blade, you'll be carrying the viral strain of Beelzebub himself. These weapons are the terror of all mortals. Even the tiniest nick or scratch usually leads to an agonizing death and eternal servitude to the Lord of the Flies as a ghastly walking corpse. And for up close vileness, we have the latest model of axe, Beelzebub's axe, that carries the viral strain of Beelzebub himself. These weapons are the terror of all mortals. Even the tiniest nick of scratch usually leads to an agonizing death and eternal servitude to the Lord of the Flies as a ghastly walking corpse. And for protection, a Black Grail shield can be used. This device of the Grail carries the blessings of the Lord of the Flies. It has a will of its own, moving to intercept any bullet or other projectile that might impede the work of Beelzebub. And finally, the parasite grenades are a boon to any upcoming worshipper of the Grail. They are a gift from the Lord of the Flies. These grenades are filled with parasitic mindworms whose bite cause fever dreams and terrifying hallucinations. They are used to force the mortals away from the safety of defending bunkers and trenches. So friends, let me know what you think to this Black Grail lore. Drop me a comment down below, and if you like this video on the Trench Crusade, why not try this one?